teach us, our Father, how we may honor the deepest and most searching desires of our hearts, teach us how we may respond to the tug of thy truth within us. Open our eyes that we may see in the world about us thy signature, so that our attitudes will be those of reverence for all men, and that even in our moments of greatest disillusionment and despair, when there seems to be so much that casts down and so little that uplifts and inspires, we shall not be deterred from the realization of thy Spirit within us and the recognition of thy Spirit in all about us. These are no idle words that we offer to thee, our Father. Words, they are symbols of meaning, but they spring from a deep and searching desire which we have as we wait in thy presence, a desire which we cannot make articulate in ways that satisfy the demands of our minds and our thoughts. Desires that remain unexpressed when we have exhausted all the means at our disposal to clarify even to ourselves what it is that we most deeply need and seek. We dare not make any demands of thy Spirit. We would not, even if we knew how, our Father. But we wait for the stirring of thyself within us, that we may know in accordance with the pattern of our own needs thy love and thy wisdom and thy truth. O God, our Father, our Father, think it would be very good if we could close the service now. As a setting for our thinking together about what seems to me to be the crucial insight and the relevant insight of Jacob Boehme and the journey that we are making, Julia Cresap has written this poem. A sparrow who lived in the eaves of a church and whose ideas were somewhat erratic met a pigeon one day from a church o'er the way whose pinions were very dogmatic. They stopped in their search for a midday repast, and in hunting they both were astute. And I hate to relate they engaged in debate that led to a frightful dispute. Quoth the pigeon, I hold theological views considered both learned and wise. So, without more delay, I will show you today the only straight road to the skies. Said the sparrow, your effort would be unrepaid, for I follow a different road, and it causes me grief to hear your belief in such a ridiculous code. Then, without more ado, I am sorry to say, they engaged in a battle most gory, till each was bereft of his sense and breath, and the curtain here falls on their story. Now a strange little bird from a blossoming tree had witnessed the scene with surprise. Then, with unfettered wing and a heart that could sing, he took the straight road to the skies. It was approaching the end of the 16th century in Germany when Boehme was born. A cobbler by training, a very modest, quiet, unattractive man. One of his biographers says that he was lean and awkward, with a high forehead that was in-bowed. I don't know what an in-bowed forehead is, but he had one. His eyes were gray, and when he became thoughtful, they were illumined with the blueness of the interior of Solomon's temple, as one man put it. He was a man who spent his entire life trying to answer the most searching questions of the human spirit. I will not attempt in this time at my disposal, nor is this the kind of setting or the place, to do a technical review of his life or the numerous things which he has written. If you would like to read a simple and yet rather technical account of his life, I would make only one suggestion, and that is a book bearing the title of our sermon topic, The Mystic Will. This, for those who want to pursue it and who do not wish to wade through all of the complexities of his writings. For our purposes, however, let us examine two or three facets of his life and his main insight and the bearing that it has on the problems by which we are beset. He had a strange gift, this man, and a gift that was so strange that everyone who felt it, who saw it, who became aware of it, even down to latest times, is sure that the gift that he had, everybody has. And that gift was to sense always that behind the external manifestation there is something that is not expressed, but of which the manifestation is a symbol. He was profoundly influenced by certain early experiences of illumination which he had. Only one is important for our purposes. He was watching one day the light as it played on a burnished pewter bowl. And suddenly it seemed as if he moved through the light, through the bowl, to that which was behind the light and behind the bowl. And he was so under the influence of this that he shook himself and walked out into the yard, sure that this was some momentary something. And as he looked around him at the grass and the trees and so forth, he had the same feeling. We all do that sometimes, don't we? For instance, when you love someone and you look at that person's hand, it is not just a hand. It is something more than a hand. When you listen to the words which someone says to you, if you care, you're always reaching behind the words, behind the sound, behind the facial expression, behind the symbol, trying to do what? Trying to make some direct contact with the pulsing, beating spirit that is groaning to overflow in the language that is used. Now, this is what he talks about, and he says that behind the external world there is spirit, and behind all of the inner furniture of one's personality there is spirit. And two words he uses that may not have quite the connotation for us that they had for him. He uses the word will, the outward will, the inward will, and he suggests that as we move out into the world, looking at the world of nature and all of its manifestations, what we sense is what he calls an outward will that comprehends into one creative manifestation all of the external world. And this has been one of the dominant characteristics of Western thought, hasn't it? That there is an order, an external order. And the foundation of much of our science and our psychology and much of our religion is built upon this assumption, this belief that there is an order external to us. And if somehow we are able to clue into that order, we can get the secret of the external world. And we have become so involved in trying to master this external world and get the answer to nature by literally immersing ourselves in nature, that we have lost man. So when we think of man, we think of him sometimes as just swirling energy or molecules, whatever these words are, or we think of him as a bundle of reflexes, or we think of him as chemical elements. And we can't find him. Have you ever tried to locate you in the descriptions of you that come from the disciplines of knowledge concerning what you are? So, Boehme says that there is this outward will that is comprehensive, that is all-inclusive, but he goes beyond Western thought at one crucial point. He says that the outward world, the external world, and the movement of what he calls the outward will stems from a spirit that is behind nature, of which nature itself is but a reflection. And he, in his effort to become rather technical, using the science and the alchemy of his day, he talks about how the whole thing was created. He insists that there was this vast abyss, which is not a new idea. It's as ancient as the mind of man brooding over the grounds of beginnings, this notion of abyss. And he says in this abyss is the spirit of God, and there is something that he calls wisdom, a mirror held up before God in the abyss, and this mirror reflects the pure desires of God, and these desires become articulate in manifestations of creation. So he accounts for the external world as grounded not in a metaphysical ground or in some kind of logos that has no personality, but rather that the external world is itself the outward breathing of the Spirit, spelled with a capital S, which for him is identical with the being of God. Now, when he starts then applying the same notion to the inner man, he says that what he discovers in the outward will, he discovers also by going within through all of the levels of his desires and his limitations and his dreams and hopes, until he comes upon what to him is a core of spirit which is resident in his spirit, which is identical with the spirit that is behind the universe. So, as man goes out this way, he comes upon the same being that he discovers when he goes down this way in himself. Therefore, he said, that if you want to have inward peace, and listen to him very carefully, if you want to have inward peace, you must experience the upward movement, which he calls the rebirth of the spirit, which is at your core, the upward movement of that spirit through all the reaches of your thought and feeling and behavior, so that there will be no expression of your personality, no expression of your life that is not literally illumined by the light of the Spirit that is moving up from the center of your being, spilling out in your character and in your life. Now, he says, that whatever there is in you that works against this birthing, which in his language is achieved through his kind of religious experience, a devout Lutheran, if we want to experience this, then we must let it become the intention of our lives, not merely the feeling tone, but the hard core of intent and purpose stripped bare of any notions of reward or punishment, with stripped bare of any notions which have to do with favor or disfavor, but we hold at dead center in our own thought and spirit until we become focused. Now, the same thing is true, says he, in the external world, that war, injustice, the kind of peddlers of opinion, this is what he had to say about the church of his day, peddlers of opinions, people who made holy places out of brick and stone. It was just brick and stone. All the conflicts, and you remember that his period was a period during a great deal of internal war and strife among the German states. It was at the beginning of the 30 Years' War. Everywhere he turned, there was chaos and disorder in the political and social and economic world. And when he turned for refuge in the church and sought to find there, because of his profound conviction that Christ was the center and the manifestation of this new life, he found in the church disorder and conflict and dissension and bitterness and hatred. And he felt, therefore, that what the individual has to accomplish, if this spirit that is at his center will move up and become manifest in his life, the external world of nature and society must also experience. And therefore, when a man who has this newness of life is aware of the implications of this for himself and for the world, he must identify himself with every expression of life that seeks to make room for the emergence in society, in nature, of the spirit of God which he, Boehme, had made room for and experienced in his private life. So, if it is true that the deepest thing in me is also the deepest thing in life, I can find it wherever I am and in whatever state I may be. You believe that? Or do you believe that the deepest thing in you is in isolation in the universe? And that there can be found no support external to yourself in your quest. I ask no dream, no prophet ecstasy, no sudden rending of the veil of clay, but take the dimness of my soul away. Our little systems have their day, they have their day and cease to be. They are but broken lights of thee, but thou, O Lord, art more than they. For me, it is enormously reassuring that what is struggling to become manifest in the external world of chaos and disorder and madness is what is struggling to be born in me. And perhaps the agonies by which we are surrounded is the birth of God. And I want to meet that birth. In me. beside us, O God, in the way that will become our way, that we shall not wander as children lost in the woods, but as thy children, with the light of thy countenance in our hearts and in our face, that we may be children of light, whatever may be the surrounding darkness. And this is enough for us, O God. This is enough.